My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from them. To arms!
You have led the Horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got me over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
We're already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guessed.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to show 79 of Whispers of War. I'm your host Sil, and sorry this show is so late, because I have no excuse, I just suck, and I guess the days just seem to blur. That's really it. Right, let's start our week in Warcraft, or actually my week in Warcraft. What has been going on? Well, the leveling buff is really ruling my life, I think, now with what I do in my spare time. So I level a lot. Maybe not as much as some of you, because I know that some of you are very fanatic with their leveling. I focused on 3 of my characters. So 3 characters of mine I've been leveling. 2 for the heritage gear, and 1 just because I want to RP with that character. They're all around, I think 2 of them are 60, 1 is level 58. But that will only take like half an hour to get to 60. It's just ridiculous. This buff is just so ridiculous. I also use Azeroth Autopilot to help with accepting quests really quickly and to have a path and a plan of where to level, and it really does help. Sometimes I go off the beaten path a little bit, just because I feel that, for instance, Stranglethorn, it will say, okay, you need to, for instance, don't kill all the animals at once, do only this part, and then don't continue on with it, just go back to camp. And I'm a bit like, no, I'm on the roll now, I'm just going to kill all the wildlife while I'm at it, and just do it that way. So, yeah, other than that, it just goes insanely quick. I've never experienced anything like this, and it really does help also to log out your character in an inn. I know that if you level, or if you really go for it with the leveling, you're gonna run out of that rested experience buff, but it will still help a little bit. So if you can rotate your characters, if you are leveling lots of them, then try to rotate a little bit. But looking at it, you can do a lot. So, for instance, I've also leveled a little bit of a baby monk of mine on the Horde side, because, well, I didn't have a Horde on a Horde monk, so I might as well just level one. But honestly, monk is really sick with their own buff that you get. I can't remember how much it is. Is it 50%? Something like that you can get every hour? But you get 100% from the buff. I think it is 50 or 60 from the heirlooms if you have everything equipped. 10 for the Dark Moon Fair, which is on right now. 10 for the potion of the draft of the 10 lands that you can get in your in BFA from the Quartermaster, and then 5 for that gem. So you're looking at like 175 to 185% extra experience right now. Plus, if you're a monk, you get even more. So this is the best time to level, really. I'll not lie, it does get boring. It's like with Alterac Valley, when Korik's Revenge was up, it was freaking boring at a certain point, because I am sick and tired of Red Ridge. I never liked Red Ridge, and the fact that the game is telling me, you need to go to Red Ridge, not the game, but the add-on, I'm just like, ugh, I hate it. I hate everything about Red Ridge. I don't like it at all. But I think everyone is also using Azeroth Autopilot, because I see a lot of people there, handing in quests and everything. So, yeah, Oh, and another one, I was just thinking about the buffs. You also, if you do play on Alliance, you get, at least on my server, 25% extra now. If you go into war mode on. Or I think it's 10 for the Horde. So, see, it all adds up, and I do have to admit, I do play with war mode on. Please don't try and find me and kill me. That's not helping with leveling. Yeah, so now I've landed on the next part of my leveling experience, which is boringly so going to be boring Tundra in Wrath of the Lich King. I'm not really looking forward to that, if I'm honest. I'm not a big fan of that area. I think once you're like balls deep in it, then it starts to go. But it's the setup quests that I just don't care about. I don't like the area particularly. I'm much more and this might shock people, I'm much more an Outland person. I tend to go to the Burning Crusade areas because, one, it's quieter, and Zangarmarsh is one of my favorite areas to quest. And it does say with the add-on that you have to go to Zangarmarsh, but after a very long time. Don't get me wrong, I like Wrath of the Lich King, but I just don't like boring Tundra. But I am willing to follow this guide because I am going to assume that this is the best way of leveling. You know, you're doing a lot of quests that are packed in close proximity of each other, and it does go quick. It really does go quick. I just get sucked into leveling really quickly, and I forget everything around me. Luckily, the guild is always very, very good at reminding me that there's a raid, and I decided to tag along with the raid. Also, I have to thank my guildies for always carrying me anyway. Because, guys, I'm a shit rogue, but I'm enjoying the class so much. I just love the class. I love everything about it. I just wish that I was better at it. And, you know, some of my guildies were really, really cool to also get me in some mythic pluses again to at least get my chest and for the week, which is really nice. And then we did a raid, so we are starting to do things on heroic now. I know for some of you that will be like, oh, we're doing mythic. That's, you know, I'm really happy for you, but I'm quite happy that we're doing heroic now. It's a really cool challenge, a painful challenge at times. But in all fairness, you know, these guys are one-shotting things in one go. I think maybe now and again we get stuck on like the stupid football mechanics, but that has nothing to do, I think, with. I think it's just damn luck at times that you get. Sometimes it's just difficult. Some things are just, you know, the game. Vexiona is also one of those that could potentially take really long, or you just nail it in the first go. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I got some nice gear, and it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy being on I want to say TeamSpeak. Jesus Christ, I'm saying my age here. I really enjoy being on Discord and just having a chat with everyone. And yeah, it's I don't know. Our raids feel very. I'm not going to say casual, but very easygoing. You know, there's no negativity. It doesn't feel negative. It doesn't feel like a fucking job, which I've had in the past with some of the guilds I've been in, especially ones raids that were led by my ex. That was hard work at times, with how much emotional trauma went on there for everyone, I think. So yeah, it's I don't know. I'm having the blast of a lifetime again in WoW, which is good. You know, it makes podcasting easier. I'm also debating, because I have been quite a shit officer. I'm really sorry for anyone who's listening from a bit like Taliafix. I'm really sorry I've been such a shit officer. To organize some fun events, so I could use your help if you have any ideas. I think there will be some running of the gnomes, and perhaps with other races. I'll have a look and see what could be potentially fun ones to start with and where to end. So I need any advice or any tips. There might be a little bit of a screenshot competition for transmog outfits for Easter. So yeah, I have things in the planning, and hopefully I can discuss that with my fellow officers, and we'll see what can happen. But any tips, I'm always very, very happy to receive those. And that's really my week in WoW. And I thought I was going to be bored and have to go back to Classic, but I'm just so busy. Oh, and I'm trying to upgrade my essences. Honestly, I don't know why I even bother, because I do have a little bit of that end of expansion feeling, where I'm like, do I still really need this? Or shall I just write it off for now and just focus on Shadowlands and just get my alts up, so at least I have characters that I might jump into if I'm deciding, you know what, I don't want to play rogue, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. Yeah, I don't really know. I think for now it will still be rogue, even though I'm still gravitating towards the paladin. Oh, and this will surprise you. I redid the transmog on my Worgen Druid, and she got a little bit of a makeover, and I really love her. This is the person who used to hate Worgen females with how they looked, but with their new updated looks, I really think they look cool. I really like mine. So, yeah. The only thing, to be a bit negative, the only thing I do not like is the running animation. Not the running wild, but the normal running animation for Worgen females. It feels like they have flippers on, if that makes any sense. Like I don't know, they push out their feet in a weird angle for me, so it looks a little bit as if they're running like Goofy. I don't know. That could just be the size of the paws or something. Something is not working there for me, so I'm trying not to see that. Luckily, Worgen druids can change into flight form or travel form. It's all fine. It's all fine. I'll manage. But yeah, I think otherwise she looks really cool. So yeah. I think, it's not so much class, it's more now aesthetics for me. What do I want to play in Shadowlands that looks good? Story of my life, I think, for every character. And yeah, so that's really it. So today's show, this is a very long intro. I have to say a lot this time. A bit different. It's going to be a roundtable. I am planning to do more. I know I said I was going to maybe once a month do a roundtable and release that as an extra thing. That didn't happen. It's going to be a normal regular show now, I guess. It might still change that I do put it as an extra show. But I have a feeling that a lot of you don't really listen to podcasts anymore now that you're in isolation, because it's very much like me. I tend to really listen to podcasts while I'm at work. Now, I can work from home, so I do listen to podcasts while doing whatever it is I need to do for work. But I think for a lot of you who are either on furlough or just, you can't go to work, it's different now. I think a lot of people go for the more visual things and stuff like that, which has prompted me a little bit of thinking of what I would want to stream. I don't think you guys want to see me level all these characters, I think that's rather boring, but, could do. So yeah, I don't think anyone is like, oh my god, where's my next show? But I'll try still to be regular, but it's just crazy times. I don't know, I feel completely... it's a bit surreal. I lose track of days and everything. Anyhow, before I completely derail and start talking about how weird life is at the moment, we have a roundtable, so it's a bit different, but it's still sort of like, questions and answers. There's not much changes, except that I won't ask people what their favorite in-game food is. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll come back afterwards with some of the things that you had to say about Corrupted Gear. And with me today, it's a very special show, first one, so I'm already anticipating that it's sounding a little bit chaotic, which, 4 people, 4 opinions. So this is the first roundtable, and today we are actually going to talk about Corrupted Gear, talking about a very interesting and heated subject, probably, for a lot of us. But first, I'm going to introduce my lovely, I can say, guests and co-hosts in this round. So, who would like to start with introductions?
Pete.
Thank you for volunteering me. Hello, everybody. I'm Pete, Titans Creed Nethercoat. You may know me around the internet as Titans Creed. I host a weekly Warcraft podcast called Stories Around Azeroth, and I've been playing Warcraft since vanilla.
Thank you very much. And of course, we already heard him.
Hello. It's Marty. I'm back. I've been on the show a few times. So
21 times, right?
I don't think we've reached 21 yet, but I think that was the goal, right? That was the contract that I signed, that I need to be in 21 shows. Hello, I'm Marty. I'm from Denmark, and I also have a podcast nowadays. I don't think I had last time, but I'm now on a podcast called Two Nerds, Maybe More, where we talk about nerdy stuff, maybe more.
Thank you very much. And our final guest?
I'm Grand Nagus, and I've been here a couple of times already, so you might be familiar with my voice as well. I have two podcasts. I'm doing my own podcast, Cops on Radio, and I'm a co-host on Control Alt WoW.
Yeah, and all of you I've talked to you in the past. As Pete said, before I started the recording, we have also been in group chats about classic WoW. So we're a little bit prepared on how to do this for the big group. But let's start with the topic. So, our thoughts on corrupted gear when it first came out, because they announced it and then they said, "Oh, we're getting corrupted gear." I'll be honest, like from my point of view, I'm very much like, okay, I guess it's okay, because I didn't really know the implications of what it was going to do for our characters. But when it first came out, what was your feeling about it? Who would like to start about this?
Yeah, I'll step in on this one. I think the biggest thing that everybody, it wasn't so much they were looking at the corrupted gear, they were more looking at the death of Titan forging. And I think that kind of took away from how much of an impact corruption was going to be. It was just an extra layer of what we were getting in this expansion of everything else that was on top of everything else. So I don't think the impact of everybody's thoughts on it was there, because people tested some bits and pieces, but there was no real distinction of how it was all going to really roll out. So there was just corrupted gear is a thing, with no guarantee of where we're going to get it until we found out. And when it was first released, and then when we found out, it was like the sources of guaranteed corruption gear were too few, and I think that's the thing. Because I remember spending a week farming sixes in Mythic Plus to try and get as much gear as we could, because it's the right level to go into raiding for your gear level, and it's the best way to get any source of gear to try and corrupt. And you got pieces or you didn't.
And you get corrupted or you didn't. Yeah, for the first stuff. And then they introduced the guaranteed corruption now with what is it?
Horrific visions.
With the horrific visions, exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. For me, it's basically the concept of corrupted gear we had previously in the Nashitar. We had the Nashitar special stuff. The Benthic gear was, in my case, maybe a trial run, a corrupted, very light version, where you basically only had the positives and not the penalty of the corruption itself. And I think that was my first thought, if I remember correctly, that that's basically Nashitar plus penalty. Basically, not that it was the same, but the thing was that it was a non-zone specific feature, contrary to the Nashitar stuff. The usage of it only works in Nashitar, and you only got it in Nashitar, and with the other stuff you get it in all over the place, except in Nashitar. so yeah, and what I don't really like about it, but I think we get to that later.
Okay. What about you, Marty?
I think at around that time was because I also used to be on a World of Warcraft podcast of the Recluse. We obviously have been having a little. We're in a hiatus at the moment. We don't really know what we were going to do with that show at the moment. And at that time, it was the same deal. So I didn't really follow the news too much. So I think that I just went into the game with, oh, there's a new patch, there's new stuff. I don't really know too much, and so in the beginning, I didn't really have an opinion about it. I think, oh, there's just more gear. It's cool. I like gear. That's some cool, the system looked cool to me. That, oh, I have this benefit, but I also have these what's it called?
Penalties.
Penalties, yeah. So it's a cool little thing, but to be honest, to me, it just ended up being like a system where I'm like, oh, okay, I have the Ask Mr. Robot thing that just looks through my bags and tells me, oh, this is the gear that you should wear, and then I'm not questioning it, and I'm just doing that. So I think that's sort of where it ended for me. But I did follow the Race to World First quite a bit, and I saw those guys that this system is probably not in an optimal state. Let's just put it that way, because I remember one of the Method guys had to switch character, and all he basically did was he just, I think they ended in the evening deciding that he had to switch character, and the day after, a lot of the people who helped Method had just mailed him BOEs, and he basically had a full set of corruption gear ready to go. And I think that is where I get a little bit, maybe this is not too good. I think when you can just straight up buy your best in slot, there's something wrong. You should earn it and through the game, in my opinion.
But
Is that something that all of you feel like that now about corrupted gear? Has that like shifted a bit now that we're further down the line with having to look at using this type of gear?
the buy to win aspect is
that's
point. In my opinion, not that it's not valid, Marty. I totally see it is a valid point, but we shouldn't mix the ability to buy stuff with the mechanics that the gear provides. We should keep that separate, because
I think if we look at the corruption system as it was originally implemented and the changes based on how we think it could do, the changes the community have said they do now, as Nagus mentioned earlier, they've put in guaranteed drops from your horrific visions, which is cool. But, as someone that does heroic raiding, my progression finished about a month ago. We did heroic N'Zoth, and I've now, like this week, I finally got my fist weapon off Raden. So, I'm technically done with the instance. I'm not going to go Mythic raiding. The only way I'm going to get any better gear from now is going to be from doing Mythic Plus. But could they have done it better? I mean, I guess the idea is that they were expecting people to go around the world and continue doing all of their normal tasks, and then they might get an item that will corrupt. And I believe I saw someone say that even on their first raiding day, the biggest thing they did is they just went around, did all their world quests, took blues which were 20 item levels lower because they corrupted, and they were just DPSing through the boss because of the way the system worked. On day one, where we didn't have cloaks with massive corruption resistance either, it's a different thing entirely. There are ways they could have changed the system. They could have had this guaranteed corruption on day one from horrific visions to go along with it. They could have put in, and it's something that I've suggested before, is that instead of just straight up cleansing the corruption, we could have bottled the corruption to reapply to something else. Because no doubt that people have got a corruption on a blue item that they've done world questing. It maybe on a piece of gear that's not going to be an upgrade for them because, they can't push to a higher level of horrific vision or they can't push a high mythic plus, but they've got some gear from their heroic raiding and they've got their guaranteed corruption. Just be able to reapply it to a different bit of gear. It would make life a little bit easier. And yeah, then people have still got to juggle their own corruption values, but having the ability to still go out and do tasks around the world, maybe get that corrupted item that's just dropped off a random 4/10 blue or something or other. I just think having some changes to the system would have been more worthwhile. When it comes to raiding, when it comes to BOEs from raiding, you've got to think like it's nice to get that BOE that you can sell. It's not nice to have a corruption piece that will essentially turn the tide of the entire infrastructure for one piece. And as Marty said, I don't think your best in slot should be purchasable. But the BOEs should be a stepping stone from progressing in your gear. So
just like finding that sweet spot of like something that I sometimes do when I have to upgrade. Like you have an alt, you need to do your world quest to get gear, but at a certain point you're at that limit, and then you have to buy some things from the auction house that are a little bit higher, so that you get boosted and shoved into the next limit of
the next timber.
Gear.
But I mean, you can essentially go to the highest limit in the game right now with how the system works. If on your main you've got a selection of Black Empire blues, and you go and do the quest line to get your cloak, essentially, with the exception of your weapon, which unless you get a really good drop is going to be 370 from the Nazjatar entrance chain, because you need to do that, you will be stacked in about 440 level items throughout the items that it rewards you from the quest chain, plus your BOAs from the Black Empire guild. So you're pretty much at the cap for what the system's going to give you anyway, because it won't go above normal level. So it's pretty much the way the system is built for gearing is to get you into normal Knight of Lothar right now. It's just if you get unfortunate and some of those decide that they're going to corrupt and you haven't got the corruption resistance, you can't use it, because unless you get carried on your cloak to like X resistance level, you're screwed. You can't use it. But if you had the ability to bottle that corruption and use it down the line when you've got that resistance, the system might be better instead of just losing it straight up.
I mean, you can cleanse it regardless.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but instead of just cleansing it and losing it, because you can still use the item, cleanse it, but bottle that corruption so you can reapply it later on.
Yeah, sure, but you just said that you couldn't use it, but the item.
Would it suck if? Okay, so if you go through and gear up your character, a brand new ult, which is with the buff that Blizzard put in, is guaranteed to happen. 100% XP buff across the board, guaranteed to happen.
2 level 120s this week, just saying.
I got one from 115 to 120 in 3 hours last night on the Time Walking Dungeon. It's insane.
Yeah.
But you gear up, you do your quest chain, but some of those pieces are corruption. But it's like some of the best corruption still are Twilight Devastation if you're going to do Mythic Plus, and Infinite Stars for single target. If you get a proc of either of those at level 3, but you have to cleanse it because you haven't got the right cloak level, you can't deal with it because it's still going to give you plus 75, and a thing from beyond is going to rinse you at that point, you're going to feel absolutely gutted that you're going to have to shard that corruption off instead of being able to bottle it and keep it for later.
And that's one of the things the way that I've been dealing with it is that obviously, as I said, I have asked Mr. Robot to help me out a little bit with what is best in my bags, and so where I am right now, I basically have like almost 2 bags full of gear. So when I get a new item, I just run it through Ask Mr. Robot to see, okay, what did this do? And I've noticed a lot of the time what happens is that I get this item that is actually an upgrade. It also means that I need to switch out a lot of other stuff, and all of a sudden I'm back to that blue 420 item that is, in this combination of gear that I have, all of a sudden valid again. And I think
the way that Sims work is that they're weighting the corruption status really high. I got really lucky this week in my Mythic Plus box. I got a 475 weapon for my Demon Hunter, and it got Severe 2. It's not the best corruption. It's like all my crit sources give me an extra 9%. it's not best. It's not, but it's a 475 weapon, and those are going to be very hard to come across until we get the new Shadowlands thing where we can like choose one of 3 things to focus on. But that I just simply replaced it with a Radan weapon, which is 15 item levels below because it's got the Void Lash corruption, which is only available on that weapon. Like, I've just dropped 15 item levels because the corruption is just weighted so much higher.
Yeah, so and you could... Sorry, Marty.
It's fine. No, it just feels so weird to have to equip something that is lower level and eye level, and it's one of those things that Blizzard said that they wanted to shy away from. If it's a higher item level, it should be better, and with this system, it just isn't. It's so non-transparent what is the better item, and that's something that I really don't like, because then you need to again look for outside sources to figure out, okay, is this better than this item, or should I keep this 420 belt that I've been having for the past 3 months? Yes, I should, apparently.
That's what RNG is all about, non-transparency. Yeah.
So that's something that all of us have run issues with, that the fact that you have to have like bags filled with items or equipment.
I mean, you don't have to. Depends how you play the game, but
that's true.
That's how I do, because
I'm
raiding and I want to, perform better. And it's so weird to look at the the stats after the raid, because I'm like sometimes 10 items level lower than my peers, and I do the same amount of damage or even better, just because my gear balance is better or whatever. It's so weird.
You have to feel sorry for the people who are playing multiple spec classes as their main characters that actually fulfill different roles, whether it be in a raiding situation. Paladins, druids, anything with the trifecta that's on one class. Like, if someone decides that they're going to be retribution in their main raid, but get asked to go to Holy occasionally for an extra healing on a boss, but they tank for their friends in Mythic Plus, that's 3 gear sets, let alone juggling corruption sets as well.
Yep.
And I mean, it's mental. Like,
I mean, it's good. It's a good thing that Warlock only has one viable spec.
Yeah, let's all just play Warlocks. Everyone.
Yeah, sure. Forsaken Warlocks.
But with that issue, I can foresee people all of a sudden going, like, for instance, I'm just going to point the finger at me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to play Paladin, but those 3 specs, yeah. You know what? I'm just sticking to my Rogue, because even though, Rogue only has really 1 spec at the moment that I want and can play in raids, I just don't want to do all the head work for all of this, because it just gives me a headache just thinking about trying to build something with the other hybrid classes. It just sounds like a nightmare to me.
I think it can be. The better players among us will actually know what they need. I'm by far... I let the computer tell me. I'm like Marty. I let the computer just work out, tell me what I need to have, and I'll use it. But I went from having a single target spec with an Infinite Stars build to having a Mythic Plus build with Twilight Devastation, and it's just worked out that I'm just using Twilight Devastation with the other corruptions, because it just works out better for like a corruption level overall, and then it just turns out that it's the best gear overall, because I get more stats from having the mishmash of item levels with the different corruptions that add up all together. It's very interesting to see how we've taken a step from the beginning of the expansion, where we've gone item level is king, and Titan forging. Like, if you get unlucky with Titan forging, guess what? You've got to go run the Eternal Palace next week to hopefully get a Titan forged ring from the boss that you want to kill, or hope you get lucky with your Mythic Plus box. And I mean, corruptions aside, it's one of the better things that they've done with this patch is with Titan forging gone, you're actually incentivized to run higher Mythic Plus for the gear.
Yeah.
Corruptions aside, because it's good. It makes me want to do higher, and I've done higher.
I think a lot of bring it back.
I really hope Titan Fortune is dead in the water at this point.
Yeah, I think it is.
So that basically like a failed can we all agree that was?
I don't think it's failed. I think it served the purpose for what they wanted it to do, which is to. This is going to go on a bit of a tangent, but back when Warcraft was still announcing sub numbers, that was their only metric, and then a lot of the things have sidestepped into the fact that their metrics are how long they can keep people playing, which is what we saw during Warlords, when they were judging metrics of people are online all the time, but they're on their alts in their garrisons because they're doing all the missions. And then we had Legion with the class wars, and they were like, well, people are online all the time because they're leveling alts to do everything else. But part of why the people kept raiding is because they always had the option to get a Titanforge piece, which is the object that it was needed to serve. Keep the raids valuable after people had finished them, so that people weren't just in there for the story. They were looking for their gear upgrades to get the best that they can. But we've got to a point in society where a lot of people are trying to value their free time over what they can do. They want to just finish the raid and be done and go and spend the rest of their patch before the next patch comes around or the expansion comes around and do other things in the game. And unfortunately, with the way that this expansion's gone, we've been punished a lot more for wanting to spend more time on our alternative characters than we had done previously. And unfortunately, that's just the way that they've tried to pile systems on systems to try and fix the game, because not been favourable in a lot of people's eyes.
They have disincentivized alt playing compared to Legion, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been in Legion. Well, pretty much every expansion, I've loved playing alt as well. I just love, the different ways that the different classes play.
Yeah.
In Legion, there was the incentive to actually go, because every spec has different stories and stuff like that. And I wanted to, I'm in it for the lore, for the story as well, and I just wanted to experience everything. But this time around, I really haven't felt like the need to go, especially not in the last few patches where they introduced essences. I think the system is pretty cool. I don't have anything against the essence system, except the one thing that it at least up until this week was very difficult to you had to re-farm all those essences, and that was just not compelling gameplay to me. And I was like, why do I even then bother with alts if I can go get these essences? Well, I can, but it will take like a long time, because rep farming is extremely fun.
I feel the sarcasm dripping off that statement.
Watch that you don't slip when you get up.
But looking at it from, can you imagine people who, especially now, because I've already seen and this is me because I always look at the Facebook posts, which is really bad, but I'm part of a lot of Facebook Warcraft groups.
Right.
And I have seen so many posts of people who are now in lockdown who are saying, yeah, I've just returned to the game, so what's the deal with all of this? And I'm like, oh my god, why are you even bothering? Because there's so much stuff.
Reddit is full with a lot of that right now as well.
Yeah, I bet.
I just took a glance at Reddit today, and there are a lot of people that are like, I'm in lockdown, and God bless Reddit. Sometimes there are some really nice people. There are actually people going out of their way to get other people some time to play the game, to actually enjoy playing the game with the 100% and getting the alts and their heritage armors and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
There are people going out of their way to buy other people game time so that they can come back and play the game, and God bless those people. But the problem is that if you're a new person coming in to, as Marty said, get the essence system done, I mean, at least there's a catch up to 50 at the bare minimum, but that doesn't even, if you're new to BFA, you don't have the opportunity for catch up for essences. It just doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're still going to have to go out and farm those. I mean, some of us are lucky in the fact that we've got level 3s to level 4s on all the slots that we have available. Blizzard have gone and made another change which says that even if you played a DPS character and didn't have access to the healing ones, if you want to do healing on an ult, you can now do that. They've gone and done that change as well now, which is amazing.
You know what they should have done? Sorry that I'm interrupting. They should have made the buying of the thing free. Basically, they shouldn't have
they should have turned around and tied them to the neck inherently, so that if you reached, because the quest in Nashitar now buffs your neck to 50, if you get to 60, you should have unlocked any 8.2 essences you've already got on a main, or something else. And if you get to 70, you should unlock any 8.3. That still incentivizes people have to go and do tasks. They're going to have. I mean, you can passively just log in and do the garrison missions or whatever to get the neck passively, but it's not going to be as fast as just doing the thing. But I think it would have been a better way to address things, and it would have inherently tied it to the neck as what the idea is meant to be. But to come back, go ahead.
The only thing though is that if you tie it to the neck, you have a new tune that has a base 50 level 50 neck, you won't have the unlocking of the level 60, level 70 stuff, which you have with the now implemented system.
Yeah, but from 50 to 60, it's only 1,000 Azerite per level. So, I mean, you could go and queue up for the Warfront, your base normal Warfront, not the heroic one, because you're probably not going to have the gear level. You get 750, that'll buff you up. You could literally spend an hour doing what I like to call the Azerite World Tour, which I did back in the day. Just go and pick out all the Azerite World quests. You're done in an hour. And then there's all the other tasks. If you want to do 3 islands or mythic or just get some friends or something else, there's 3k Azerite from that alone a week, as well as any emissaries that are up. You could quite easily go from 50 to 60 in a day. I think because I got 10 or alts or something up in 8.2, and most of them are at 35, and then I started playing with 8.3 rod, and I got it from 35 to like 65 in the span of a day, just because of how the artifact knowledge works. It's there, but the problem is that if a new player comes back, they've got to do all of that, and they've then got to deal with trying to play catch up with gear levels and corruption and everything else that they can't feed through to an alt. There's a lot of stuff. Whereas if a new player came back at the end of Legion, the way that the artifact power system works is they got 1 billion artifact power straight up, and they were able to get straight to Concordance of Legion pool straight away. They didn't have to worry about anything else. They had all of this power gain straight away once they hit endgame, and then they just had to, do a couple of world quests, get some gear, go to Argus because that's where the story takes you, and you got fed gear just by the sheer drops of everything. It was world quest drops and just off normal mobs as well as the rares.
Yeah,
and then they only had to worry about the gear.
And you can buy the rest from the crystals.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas they've tried to put in a new currency with mementos, but mementos are inherently locked behind doing the horrific visions, and then there's sockets to buy, a mount to buy, and a cosmetic backpack to buy, and that's it. I feel like they've overstepped the mark with the vision currency and the memento currency, and they could have lowered the cost of a key at the beginning and still kept the amount that you need to get into horrific, and then use visions to maybe buy corruption as an applicable thing from Rathian, but only maybe once. I don't know, as a way to lock it, you turn around and go, well, you can buy this, but I don't know it, but if you cleanse it with Mother, it will be in the data bank and we can maybe apply it that way.
So like a Diablo 3 heroic cube thingy where you
unlock it and you've got access to it.
Or put it on a scroll, basically. Go and buy an enchanted scroll.
Yeah, I get that. That was a conversation that came up when I was discussing this sort of idea, and obviously the first thing anybody came to is, I could put it on a BOE scroll and then sell the corruption. I was just like, no, I can't do that.
No, I mean, you can make them soulbound. That's not an issue. But I mean, yeah.
There are lots of ways I think Blizzard could have tackled it, and I think they may have just missed the mark for being a patch-only system. But maybe if it was in from the beginning of the expansion, and I think maybe if there weren't so many corruption affixes, trying to RNG 1 out of 52 is immeasurable. There needs to be a way. If you were able to control it, the class discords would be able to go, this is the corruption you need to aim for, And if they toned down, if they did a proper damage pass on everything so that Twilight Devastation and Infinite Stars went so far ahead of everything else, people might be able to have more fun with their class by going, well, maybe if I pick up the crit boost on all my gear, the versatility boost on all my gear, maybe people would be able to build characters as they want if they had access to build a character how they wanted.
Yeah, they can put in they can put in diminishing returns or whatnot if you have too many of them. They can do so many things if you go and get 4 or 5 of the same affix or whatnot. There's so many things that they could do if they want to.
Is this something that, with looking to the future of Shadowlands, and knowing that Blizzard, even though everyone who is in the community always shouts, oh, Blizzard doesn't listen, they do whatever they want, which we know is not true. They do listen to feedback, because they have changed a lot of things. So I'm going to assume that they are going to look at what's being said about corrupted gear and all of that. But there was a time when we had gear vendors. Is that something that would be better than gear like this?
Again, it goes back to TBC and Wrath and gear vendors being a way of catch-up gear.
Mm-hmm.
There exists an interview with the guy who actually invented the gear vendor back in TBC and Wrath, and they said that there are multiple different ways of catch-up systems, and one of those systems is buying gear, and it was ultimately the worst decision they ever made. As a designer and a developer, I can kind of see that, because you want people playing your content continuously to get drops from the game, rather than to go, if I go and do X dungeon 5 times, I have enough to buy this one piece. As a way of catch-up gear, I think it's fine if you have the currency available to be able to buy the piece and then send it to your account alt, so your alt can catch up on like a certain piece, or then they can incentivize to do. Again, it goes back to the BOA. If you can gear up an alt so they're incentivized to actually do the content, it's fine. But as a point of being the main replacement of your best in slot gear, it shouldn't be the case that they can. Yes, they technically earned it because they've done enough content to buy the piece, but they should be hoping for the gear to drop. And the problem again with that turns into the way the gear drops. Blizzard, if you're going to listen to anything, get rid of personal loot. Please, for the love of God, it does my absolute spine in.
How do you guys feel about the idea of gear vendors or anything like this?
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that basically, if I look back to BC and to Wrath, the items that you got from the vendors were locked behind rep, most of it. If you like the exception of the, I'm thinking about the faction vendors now.
I think in the later patches we got a vendor where we just could use clear.
You've got your Valor.
Yeah.
You've got your Valor badges.
Yeah,
I think
Valor and Frost badges and whatnot. Yeah, that was probably not too good of an idea, especially because you could, on the one hand, you could buy some tier pieces, which they shouldn't have put in. They had throughout Wrath, they had for each tier, you could buy 2 pieces of gear or two tokens of a vendor. I think the slots were the same in the first and the second tier, and then they changed it up with the third.
Colosseum was the worst for it because you bought all of your gear base level, and then you used the tokens to upgrade your gear.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the same thing with ICC. It was the same thing. So, I think that was, I don't know, it was something in my opinion that they shouldn't have done. With the other stuff that was non-set piece and still a little, I don't know, a little low. I don't think that was too bad, because usually they weren't the best in slot. One thing that I thought was quite bad was that they put the PvP stuff on the vendor.
I forgot that.
The honor sets. Not that I did much PvP, but the blue honor set, that was a thing that I really didn't like. Now it's good because you can basically get that set for free. You don't have to do anything. You just go and buy them for gold, and you don't have to spend the marks of honor for them. So, but back when it was current, I really didn't like that. I mean, it was convenient, but yeah, I don't know. Not a favor.
Okay.
I think I don't mind a gear vendor if it's for catch up and if you still have to do stuff for it. Because I remember back in the Wrath days that at least towards the end of the expansion, everybody was playing Alt, just having fun with that. And I remember just, I did so many dungeons just to farm badges to buy gear to catch up, and it actually incentivized me to go play the game. And I think then it's all right. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to buy the best in slot. You shouldn't be able to buy your tier pieces and stuff like that, because you have to work for those. You need to get into raids, dungeons, whatever, and get those drops. But for catch up, I think I'm fine with it, to be honest. I
think Residium is probably the closest thing we're going to get to a gear vendor these days, and I kind of like it. But I've been advocating it all BFA, where they did it with 8.3, but they just clear everybody's Residium totals, set it back to 0 at the beginning of a new season. It keeps all the prices for the gear that you need normalized, and nobody's getting silly amounts that they need per season. It's what they used to do when Wrath was a thing. A new tier comes out, all of your maximum valor badges turn down to the step below, and then you had to regain the newest content badge, and that was the way you did it. And I think Residium's probably, it incentivizes people to do Mythic Plus, because they'll get a set amount of Residium in their week beginning box equal to the level they've done. Maybe drop with the fact that Azerite gear is going to go away, I wouldn't say that getting Residium on a Mythic Plus completion, varying if you did it in time and if you did it out of time, because then obviously you're incentivized to finish it in time to get better gear. And then obviously because there'll be no Azerite pieces or no Anima pieces, please, for the swear to God, Blizzard, no more artifact power, please.
Anima power?
Yeah, Anima power. No, thank you.
Another AP then.
We're getting Anima power. That's the thing. We know that's a thing, but it's meant to be capped per week. But I don't want any gear that works off a thing I have to pick up around the world. Mm-hmm. But with the fact that Azerite pieces are going away, why not give us a mishmash of pieces that cover all sets for a cost of Residium from Mythic Plus? I don't see why that can't be a thing. If they want to keep going with the Mythic Plus system, which I presume they do because they prefer it over the challenge system, why not just allow people to have the option to buy gear? Because it goes with Blizzard's nature that the character that someone's doing it on is doing the work to earn the piece.
Yep.
And it sorts out the RNG factor as well. Because I'm not sure how many Mythic Pluses you guys run or how many times you run a raid, but I've run many weeks of Nyalotha, even with 2 coins on 12 bosses, and got no loot at all, or I've given the loot to somebody else because I don't need it. I've run many Mythic Pluses where nothing pops up. We get 4 out of 5 pieces, but you're the person that doesn't get it on repeated runs. It happens too much, and there needs to be a protection against that. And if that comes in the source of the player gains more residium in order to buy a piece that they can earn a piece per week, I think that should be fair. More than fair.
I am the classic hunter of BFA. I have 3 specs. Every gear is good for me, so I don't have those issues, Pete.
Well, let's go back to the days of Classic, when, okay, min-maxing, it was there, but it was very much, okay, you're raiding like Molten Core, you're raiding Blackwing Lair, you're, for instance, a Druid. Okay, so you're basically an Innervate battery. That was all you were good for. This is your tier set. You might have like the flavor of a weapon that could be different, or some. I don't think we had rings back then, did we? So it was just just your gear.
Oh, you're going to Diamond to get the gear for Anchorage, the nature resist.
Yeah, things like that, or fire resist, and that made it maybe a little bit complicated. But that was as complicated as it would get. I think if you had an off spec, or like a spec that wasn't played as much, and I remember we had a Druid tank. I don't know, by God, why someone wanted, but we had a Druid tank, and they had to have like different types of gear that they had to get instead of the tier set. But looking back at the tier sets, when you would see someone in a tier set back in the day, it meant something. Because no one had could transmogrify their gear. You knew these were raiders, and you didn't have to think too much about your gear because, apparently Blizzard thinks this is the best thing for me. How is that now?
The problem with that mindset is that it romanticizes end tier sets. Now, there's a very big difference to how endgame vanilla was compared to how endgame classic is and endgame BFA is. Mm-hmm. The way that the live game works now compared to, we'll take classic because it's out at the minute. The way the end game works now is that there are so many different ways that you can classify endgame. Is your endgame finishing the raid tier on any difficulty? Is your end game getting a character to 120 and then going to level another one? Is your end game doing all your mythic pluses of the season at 15 and having getting the maximum level you can gain from the week, which is 475 in a box or 465 from your mythic plus runs? I mean, first of all, you've got to determine how you consider a person's end goal, and then you've got to consider the fact that in Classic, there wasn't that many people playing. Probably still half, maybe a third of what is currently playing BFA now. And how accessible the current endgame content, depending on how you categorize it, is available to everybody right now. It's a very different thing. Like, you needed 15 people to do Strathon, 40 people to do Molten Core back in, because those were the set standards in vanilla. Now it's proven with the fact that everybody knows how to play the goddamn game. In Classic, you don't need any of that. You just need to have a brain and know how to play. Like, nobody takes that tier set figurization out and looks at it and goes, wow, I wish I could do that. I occasionally get it when I have a mount nobody else does, and they go, oh, where did you get that? But that's about it. Transmog's also a thing that's changed the game. No, because you don't look at somebody and go, that's their gear. You look at my Demon Hunter, my main character. It's wearing a heroic version of Tomb of Sargeras armor because I think it looks the best at what Demon Hunters have had so far. That's a personal thing, I don't like the way a lot of the armor sets have looked in BFA. That's an art decision based on the dungeon, and I don't mind the fact that they've gone for an art direction per dungeon rather than per class. I think it allows the art team to back off a little bit and do raid stuff. Again, I just think it depends on how you categorize an endgame, because I don't think anybody looks at anybody else, and I think they focus more inwardly on what their character is rather than what other people are doing.
I have to agree with a lot of what you're saying, Pete. The only thing that I think is a little bit weird to me is that my main at the moment is a shaman. It's a male wearer. I have the full set of the newest raid, and then recently, like this weekend, I or this week rather, I leveled my hunter to max level, and I could straight up, just transmog into, this full set of raiding gear, because it's tied to, the type. So since I already had the male set, I could just transmog into, and that felt really weird to me, considering that my hunter's item level is 400 and haven't set step inside of raid yet. I mean, that's the only thing. I wish that there might be something more towards the class than just the type, but I mean, that's just me. Maybe, I don't know.
For me, since I play a warlock, I always liked the tier 2 set, the BWL set, and that, in my opinion, together with the big scythe you got from the now.
Nagus?
No, you get it from the was it level 20 class quest?
Yeah, for warlocks, yeah.
For warlocks. And back in the day, you could get it, or you had to do the class quest in Felwood to get your Infernal. That was the source where you got that. Those together. I even saw a cosplayer in that set. Two years ago at BlizzCon. I was like instantaneously in love, and I got like a million pictures with her. It was so awesome. So but and now I really think I like the Godan Warlock set. That's with the big bones on the shoulders and the
stuff from Hellfire Citadel.
No, it's from Furnace Mythic.
I've got the shoulder. I know I've got the shoulders on my clothy somewhere. I know. Yeah. I just can't. I can't use the movie stuff because it's a horde only transmog.
Yep. Yeah. It's a Mythic Furnace set. But that iconic feeling of that reflects my class and my love for the class. That gets lost now with the type specific stuff, and yeah.
So if no one can see this, but it's really funny seeing all the guys just putting up their hands. Like, what do you say?
I think.
Go ahead, Pete. Mine is a little bit more general, I think.
I think that the best way to have something that shows off a class and how good you are at a class is, instead of having a reflection of tier sets, is to have something cosmetic that you can show off. I think the Mage Tower artifacts were a good step. The problem being is because it wasn't an end of expansion thing, by the time everybody got to Argus, everybody was able to go back and overpower it before, if they were interested in getting it. I think another step would be to have something like a unique appearance per class, and I want to throw back to Missa Pandaria and say the Green Fire Warlock quest. Again, it was mid-expansion, but it was balls' hard quest, and even if you were literally wearing catch-up gear, it was still relatively difficult to do. And stuff like that. And if they remove, it's annoying because I don't want Blizzard to remove stuff, because by the time you get around to leveling an alt, you're like, well, if I had this back then, I could have had it, and people into the game. But it looks cool as an alternate thing if it's actually kept away. You know?
Yeah.
Again, I have to agree with you. The thing that I wanted to point out, though, is that I feel like, but that's more like a general art style thing. These days, there's a lot of stuff on the armor sets and stuff like that. And I mean, it looks really good, but sometimes, one of my favorite sets is probably, it's on my priest. I think it's a PvP set from maybe I don't know, vanilla or maybe it's TPC. I don't really remember. But the thing that I really like about it is that it's so simple. It's basically just a gun, and it's really, really, really simple. Whereas all the armor sets these days, they have so many things on them that I wouldn't mind that that they also sometimes maybe just toned it down a little bit, did it a little bit more simple.
I think it's why I like the heritage sets more, because they're not super flashy, they're very plain, but they fit the aesthetic that they're trying to go for a race. Unless you're a Worgen, in which case you just get thrown in the dumpster, because why is the Worgen allowed to have a nice transmog set?
What I would like
you gotta top hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
I thought you would love that as an Englishman.
Mate, I have advocated for, like, they put, what is it? They used one of the, he's in Heroes, the Bronzebeard. Oh my goodness.
Marty?
Magni. They used Magni's base hero set as the Dwarven Heritage. Why couldn't they have used Greymane's base set in Heroes as the Heritage?
The Dwarven set is so nice, I have to admit. It's really
Well, I
nice.
literally unlocked it last night.
It was the first one I unlocked. It was the first one I unlocked. It's so cool.
But going back to it, I think if you want a level of prestige in the game, I think it has to be tied to class progression. I think it has to be a bollock hard quest to do that rewards something cosmetic. Now
It would give people an incentive also to level alts again.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we could probably rattle up one off for nearly every class. I imagine. Like, what if you with mages you gave them the orbs that Kael'thas has that floats around? I'm sure like warlocks could have some passive thing where they get like a circle of fire around their feet, quite like the old cinematics and bits and pieces back to like the classic and TBC one, where they just stand idle and there's like an animation of fire around their feet. Druids, you could do something similar, but have it with like flowers or something like that. Like it doesn't have to be a massive thing, but something that's subtle that can show off that you've done X task in a game.
I know
which
what
isn't a title or achievement.
I want for my Forsaken Warlock to have the creepy rottening thing that you have in the vanilla cinematic as a
shadows, pretty much
as a ground effect when I walk. That would be awesome.
That would be cool. There's so much they could do to get a little bit of that class identity back, I guess. Right, let's go to our final thoughts about corrupted gear and where we hope that we will get to in Shadowlands. Who wants to start with their final thoughts?
Marty can.
Oh.
Goes full circle, Marty.
God damn it. I don't know really. I think, as we already mentioned, I sort of like the system. It has some good things in there, but I really dislike that all the BOEs can also get it, and you can basically pay to win and buy your best in slot. I don't like that. I want that to go away, but I don't know, something along the lines of what we already have, but without the BOEs, could potentially work.
Okay. Grand Nagus, what about you?
I hope they don't bring it back in the way that it's now. I've heard that they won't, because the corruption is so North focused, so they would have to come up with something new, and finding something that balances good and bad, like buff and penalty. I mean, obviously we don't know exactly. We don't know what the Shadowlands hold, other than being in the maw has basically a constant damage debuff incoming, much like you have if you stand in the fire, basically. So something like that. I don't know. For me, I don't want it back in the form that it is now, and I want, as we said, as we found out here between us, that we need to get it more. We need to have them do more with it. It needs to be more accessible, but through different sources. You have to do basically a catch-up mechanic from the beginning. As we said, you need to have the bottling, the stuff that you need to, or that you could get that to bottle it up. And with catch-up mechanic, I think we should, or I think that I hadn't mentioned that yet. We should be able to have the different. If we do that, we should have the different levels of it be more potent. So you can scale it up and down. Where you have different levels of corruption, and you need more because your old gear had more corruption, and you want to reach a certain threshold, or you want to reach a certain number again. I think you can do that by maybe combining two scrolls, if we go back to that. So there are so many things that they can still do. But
if I can quickly add as well, I really like Pete's idea with being able to, when you cleanse it, that you take the ability, you take the ability of the item out, and then you can apply it to other items. Some sort of system like that. They also have it in Diablo 3. I think it could potentially be cool. It obviously also means that the abilities need to be balanced a little bit more than they might be right now.
Otherwise, everybody puts Twilight Devastation 3 on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
As a system, it's thematically correct with the way Blizzard is telling the story, and I'm fine with that. At the end of the day, they're trying to tell a story, and it thematically fits what they want to do. I'm cool with that. I absolutely am. The way they've implemented it is clunky. I would have preferred a system that would have evolved over the span of an expansion, and if we had had stuff like... It's hard because, even though the more smarky of us knew that we were going to have an old god thing at the end of the expansion, we didn't have it at the beginning, so there's no way we could have done it. If we had Infinite Stars and Twilight Devastation at the beginning versus Cahoon and everything in there, and we could have had, and then it would have been tuned down as we had like an extra 1, 2, 3 corruptions per raid cycle patch that had come in, and then it would have been a system that we could have used over the span of it. But I guess we'd get back to the same problem would be, I have everything on my main. If I want to do corruptions on an alt, where do I go to? And then we have everybody going, account-wide corruptions when? It's all circular, and I think the biggest way to take away from this is that the system needs to be easy enough that it can evolve over the span of an expansion rather than a patch and be throwaway, because people are at the point where they hate throwaway expansion items like the artifacts and the neck piece.
Yep.
People hate throwaway patch stuff more. I remember the uproar when we weren't getting any more scenarios, and they used scenarios to tell stories as part of the game. People know that islands are going to go in the bin after this expansion. What's going to happen to the people that want to go back and do islands to get the rest of their mounts? Do they have to get a group of 3? Will it be tuned so that one person can queue up for it? It's a lot of questions about stuff, but then it also has to be, is it going to be alt accessible as well? And corruptions at this point aren't, unless you're willing to put the time in to do horrifics and get rank 15s, and a lot of that is going to rely on if your friends have got extra keys or time that they're willing to help you with, if you want to push, because you're not going to have raid gear to do 5 mask horrific visions and anything else to get that sort of level of gear.
One last point. I think when you talk about through the whole of the expansion having a corruption type piece or feature, you could have, like, off the top of my head, I thought of blood corruption, so to speak, for tier 1 in Cahoon. That would have been a viable alternative without giving away the fact that corruption comes
From the off, yeah.
yeah. So I'm just thinking of what you could have, like a type of watery stuff that Ashara does in Nyarotha.
I think the biggest problem lies in the fact that the corruption system as it exists, with the damage modifications that it exists and everything it does, is simply a big... I hate shitting on Blizzard at the best of times, but it feels like it's a cynical side of me would say it's a more throw something at the wall and see if it sticks to use it in the system going forward. You know,
for me, it's a band-aid.
This entire expansion's been about band-aids, if we want to look at it like that.
But it's basically a band-aid that covers up the wound that is Titan Forging.
Yeah, but it didn't need to be. They could have literally have turned around, not released corruption, and just gone, N'Zoth's broken the Titan Forges, there's no more Titan Forging, all your gear will be as it drops per thing.
Yeah.
They didn't need to do it. But you've got to look at it on the other side. The whole idea of the corruption system has brought us horrific visions, which is good content now that they've unlocked so much of the saving and keying in values.
I think one of the main things as well, but that is probably a whole episode in itself, is that the whole N'Zoth thing that should have been an expansion in itself, shouldn't it?
I have a theory, which I've said on Shadow Stories Around Azeroth many times, subtle plug, that
what is that? What does that mean? Is that a podcast you're doing?
It's a podcast.
Oh, okay.
Stories Around Azeroth. You can find it on twitch.tv/Project No. Going to the Shadowlands allows a whole point of time dilation because of the way that the system works in the terms of time. We'll be away from Azeroth, even though it's an MMO, and we'll be going back to Stormwind to use the auction house. The time we spend in the Shadowlands in canon means that the Azeroth will progress more. I think everything that was done during N'Zoth was shown to us, and N'Zoth is still around. And I think that he'll subtly do Black Empire stuff while we're not there. And I think that we may very well come back to a Black Empire expansion after Shadowlands.
We'll be back in 4 years to see if Pete is right on this episode of yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to come at me in 4 years' time, you can find me at Titans Creed on Twitter.
Just make like notes of this, just to remind ourselves, set it in your Outlook calendar.
I am making our calendar event right now as we speak.
Already, just be like, ! Remind me 4 years.
I think definitely it will be interesting to see what will happen in Shadowlands. We have, I'm going to be very positive in saying in 9 months we'll know, probably by the end of December, what will happen. I don't know, but there's so much going on in the world at the moment. I don't know if if we'll be getting any news on Shadowlands anytime soon with what's going on, and people working from home now at Blizzard. That will also put nice delays in place, so we can but wait. But I want to thank you all for giving all your input. And I think you were all very polite as well. I'm very, very surprised that there was no screaming and yelling. But maybe that's more if if it was a different topic, perhaps. But no, thank you.
You didn't hit the right topic for that.
I'll try to find something more I
have a lot of corruption resistance, so don't worry.
I have 60. I'll have 63 next week.
Oh. Right, guys, thank you so much for being wonderful guests, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the first roundtable.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cheers.
So I hope you enjoyed that first roundtable. Still finding my way in it, but I think so far it's not bad. Any suggestions for roundtable topics? I am all ears. So yeah, just let me know. I think we're going to definitely have a roundtable about, ladies who are in the game as players and NPCs. So that will be one of the topics. And of course we'll have class roundtables and things like that. I think that might be really interesting. Maybe right before Shadowlands or directly after Shadowlands, depending on what changes we're going to get. But yeah, I would like some more topic ideas. So feel free to message the show. Talking about messaging, very smooth segue there, if I say so myself. You can of course get in touch on the Twitter. Just go to @whispers_of_war, where I will also post the question of the week if I am not a dumbass and forget that one again. So this week, or actually it was 2 weeks ago, I asked what you thought about corruption or corrupted gear. And this is what you guys said. Scrubs versus the World said, I love the idea of it, but I wish they would have given us a stepped option. For example, you can't get a rank 3 piece until your cloak hits level 10, or something like that. It would have made the progression feel better in the early stages. Overall, I like the risk, but not the execution. That's a lot of it, isn't it? Like, I do feel like Blizzard has really good ideas, and sometimes the idea is not bad, it's just how they did it. Or, like those small things of how and when and why and how you get it and the upgrades and things like that. So, yeah. I mean, for me, corrupted gear, I don't know. I don't know, I find it very confusing. I'm very old school with the fact that I just love tier sets. It has something very old school for me, and I kind of miss that at times, but I guess it gives you more freedom in a way, except for the RNG. Okay, anyhow, you've heard anything about that in the roundtable, so let's just continue with what you guys said. You don't need my opinion. Exclavier said, I can't say I'm much of a fan of the corrupted gear, but I've also not been playing very much with the new patched content. Since I do a lot of transmog runs for my army of alts, I would like to see the days of the old class sets return. As for the gear vendors, why not make the system designed that if you run content weekly, you could collect enough tokens by, say, the middle of the patch that you could buy 1 or 2 pieces of gear to offset bad drops. You still have to run the content, but consistent play is rewarded. That's actually a really clever idea. That would work. Ali said, I love that they are trying something new and different. I'm a 15-year-old in a 15-year-old game, that is important. I like the choice it gives between how much corruption and what types of corruption. I don't like that there are some corruptions that are completely overpowered. Yep, fair enough. Spanky Hunter said, corrupted gear is something different. It's good because it's only for one patch. It follows the story and it suits the story. As for gear vendors, screw that. Same old boring 2-piece, 4-piece set bonuses that are just boring, pass. Move forward and try new things, not go backwards to old boring crap. I think that's also fair enough, Yeah, there's something to say for that. I don't know, maybe I just like boring old crap, I don't know. So yeah, you guys had a lot to say about corrupted gear. I'm still conflicted about it. I don't know. I sometimes I hate going to another website and relying on other like third-party tools to figure out what really is best for me. And part of me shouldn't, sometimes you just want to click things because it sounds cool and not go like, oh, I'm really, really nerfing myself now. But I guess that's just how the game is nowadays. We'll see what Shadowlands will bring us. Hopefully a different system, in my opinion. But that's me. Right. So, if you want to get in touch with the show or anything, or basically me, you can do it in the following ways. You can find the show on whispersofwar.podbean.com for all the old shows and, of course, the show notes. Go to dragonpoweredstudio.com/Discord if you want to be part of the conversation. Lots of free games, other great podcasts that you can find, of course. And it's also a way of posting stuff on the Whispers of War thread. So, anything you want off your chest, you can do that there. Another great way of contacting is, of course, Twitter. So go to @whispers_of_war, or my personal one, McMonkeys with a Z. Email the show, of course, whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com. And the Twitch is twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs. And that's it. I hope all of you are safe and doing well. And you're not running out of toilet paper. So... Have a great week, guys. I will make sure that the next show comes out in time. I try. So, yeah, see you all next time. Bye-bye.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.